On this short video, I want to ask a well-known question with regards to the genealogies of Yakov, the family of Yakov that's coming to Egypt. For some reason, the Torah specifically mentions that Yehuda had his first two sons, Er and Onan, and they died. And then it says that he had, of course, Shelah and two sons from Tamar, Peretz and Zerach, and Peretz had two of his own children. So the question is, first of all, why does it mention the two sons of Yehuda that died? Obviously, first of all, we know the story already, and obviously, since they died, they're not counted within the 70, and they're not. In fact, the 70 souls that came to Egypt do not include the first two sons of Yehuda because they were dead. So what's the point of mentioning this again? It's known that the Mikubalim, the Jewish mystics, point out that the story of Yehuda, whatever happened to Yehuda, is similar to Yibum. Now, this is not just in Kabbalah. This is a well-known approach to the story. It certainly rings true that the concept was similar to Yibum. I mean, Yehuda originally wanted, of course, the brother to do Yibum, like the Torah later will prescribe. The law of Yibum is that if one of the brothers dies without children, his widow either marries one of the remaining brothers, and they build basically the family back. The son of their son would be considered like the person who died without children, kind of his memory. What Mikubalim add to this is the understanding that he will have the soul of the deceased. So the person, the man who died without children, will come back as a son of his former wife and his own brother. So originally, definitely what Yehuda wanted to do was similar to Yibum. He wanted one of the brothers, Onan, to do Yibum for the wife of his deceased brother, for Tamar, the wife of Er. But my point is that it's not just Onan that was trying to do Yibum and actually didn't do Yibum. He did not want he did not actually want to have children from Tamar and ended up dying himself. But that what Yehuda did without realizing, when he had relations with Tamar and later she got pregnant with two sons, that is also a type of Yibum. Even though it's not the brother, normally Yibum was only done by the brother, and the Torah will not permit when a person dies without children that his father would marry his widow. There's no such law in the Torah. In fact, it's totally forbidden. The wife of a son is forbidden forever. A woman who married one's son becomes forbidden to the father forever, even if they both get divorced, or if the son himself dies. The daughter, what they call, I think, daughter-in-law, right? The daughter-in-law could never marry her father-in-law. But this was before giving of the Torah, and something similar to Yibum was performed without Yehuda realizing. So that's what Mikubalim add to this, that the souls of the two sons that came were actually the sons of Yehuda, meaning Er and Onan were the same people, the same souls reincarnated now into Peretz and Zerach. Now there is a different opinion in Kabbalah that actually Peretz and Zerach were not the souls of sons of Yehuda, but the sons of Peretz himself were. So the two souls that were married to Tamar became not her children, but her grandchildren in the next Gilgul. There is an opinion like that too in Kabbalah. But if that the case may be, definitely in the writings of our mystics, the concept of Yibum is fully related to the concept of reincarnation. So what I wanted to mention is a few explanations that answer the original question I posed. According to the first explanation, the reason Er and Onan are mentioned here is because the Torah wants to emphasize that even though they died, their souls did come back and entered Egypt as sons of Yehuda again through Tamar. That's one possibility. Or grandchildren of Yehuda from Peretz. Another possibility, and I don't think it contradicts the previous one, it's just a different understanding that may be complementary rather than contradictory. And that is, if you count the number of years that passed between the time that Yakov came to the land of Canaan and all these stories happened, the story of Yehuda and the following stories, and the time they entered Egypt, there seems to be too little time. All the commentators talk about it, and already the Chazal and the Talmud discuss it. There seems to be too little time for all of this to happen. Yehuda marries his first wife, has 3 children from her. Then the first of his children, marries Tamar. He dies. His second son marries Tamar. He dies. Then after a while, not immediately, as the Torah mentions, after a while, so presumably some years passed, or at least quite a long time passed, Yehuda's wife dies. Then Tamar gets pregnant from Yehuda. And not just she bears children, but one of her children, Peretz, has his own children already at the time when the Jewish people are entering Egypt. So when you count the number of years, it seems like there's not enough years there. Chazal's understanding is that sometimes people used to have children very early, at very early age. This is in theory possible. Even today, sometimes these things happen. There was a story, I think, somewhere in South America that some girl got pregnant some very young age, maybe 5. I don't remember the exact story. In Peru, probably. There is definitely very rare circumstances when a person, especially a man, it's harder for a woman, but a man that could maybe impregnate a woman at a relatively early age. So that's the opinion of Chazal. A different possibility that Ibn Ezra, Ralbag, and many commentators offer is that in fact the stories were happening in parallel, meaning part of the story of Yehuda happened before even Yosef was sold to slavery, even though it says, right, that the Torah kind of splits the story of Yosef into 2 halves, and in the middle puts the story of Yehuda. And there's a reason for it. Including one of the reasons, as the commentators point out, is that Yehuda did not withstand the temptation of some woman who he didn't know was Tamar, whereas at the same time, Yosef did withstand his temptation. But whatever the case may be, even though the story is inserted there, that doesn't mean that it didn't start before. Even though the simple meaning of the Torah seems to be that only after the selling of Yosef did Yehuda marry his first wife, Bat-Shua, and had his first children. But if it happened, in fact, at the time, then we must prove, this would be a proof that that children of Yehuda had their own children really early. But there's also a third possibility that I saw brought down. Some commentators say that, in fact, when Yakov entered Egypt, the grandchildren from Yehuda through Peretz were not born yet. And that's exactly why this pasuk actually mentions Onan, meaning there had to be 70 souls of Yakov. Hashem wanted it that way, but because of the sins of and Onan, they died. So the future grandchildren that will be born in Egypt would be counted in their place, especially if they were their Gilgulim, how much more so. So the point is that when the Torah says that the children of Peretz were, and mentions their names, it doesn't mean that they necessarily were born before entering Egypt. It just counts them to get the total number 70, which would have been 70 anyway had Aaron and Anna not died. So the Torah mentions because they died, therefore we're counting the 2 children of Peretz who were born later already in Egypt as a kind of replacement for Aaron and Anna, especially if, like I said, they were their own Gilgulim, their own reincarnations. So I thought that was an interesting shot. And if you like this video, please press like and please subscribe to our channel.